7 double faults. That is how many Coco Gauff hit in one set against a 20-year-old from the Philippines who was playing her first ever match at Indian Wells. 7. And the terrifying part, for anyone paying attention, was that by the time Gauff felt a firework detonate inside her left arm, Alex Eala had already taken everything from her that mattered. Let me take you inside that Sunday evening on Stadium 1, because the scoreline tells you almost nothing. The final result reads 6-2, 2-0 retired. Neat. Clinical. Forgettable, if you only glanced at it. But what happened between the lines of that match on March 8, 2026, was something far stranger and more significant than a retirement. It was the moment a rivalry that had been building across 3 continents in less than 3 weeks reached a kind of boiling point that neither player expected, and only one of them survived. Here's what you need to understand about the architecture of Eala versus Gauff. Their professional relationship did not begin with animosity. It did not begin with a stare down at a net or a social media slight. It began with doubles. In 2025, at the Italian Open, these two shared a court, shared a strategy, shared water bottles at changeovers. They practiced together. They are, by most accounts, friendly. But the WTA Tour has a habit of turning friends into opponents with a cruelty that no one involved ever quite gets used to. And the draw in Dubai in February 2026 was the first time the tour told them to stand on opposite sides of a net and try to destroy each other. What happened in Dubai was a mauling. Gauff walked onto the court as the world number 3 with 2 Grand Slam titles to her name, including a French Open she had ripped from Aryna Sabalenka's grip the previous June. Eala walked on as a player still learning what it meant to occupy space in a WTA 1000 quarterfinal. The education lasted 53 minutes. Gauff won 6-0, 6-2, and it was not even that close. Eala produced 33 unforced errors. She won a single break point from 2 opportunities. Gauff broke her serve 6 times from 9 chances and won 70% of points on Eala's first serve. The message was unambiguous. You're not ready. This is what the gap looks like. Go away and think about it. And then Gauff did something remarkable. Standing on the court in Dubai after administering that demolition, she grabbed the microphone and said to the crowd, which had been overwhelmingly and loudly cheering for Eala, "Thank you guys for coming out here. I know you were mostly supporting Alex, but I have to say it's great to be on a crowded court. I'd like to thank Alex for bringing a new demographic to the sport. I really appreciate it. I think it's great." That was grace. That was also a champion planting her flag. Gauff was generous enough to acknowledge what Eala had done for the sport while making it crystal clear who still owned the court. Both things were true simultaneously. That is the duality that made what happened 17 days later so remarkable. Because Indian Wells was not Dubai. Indian Wells was something else entirely. To understand why, you have to rewind 2 days to Friday night in the desert. Eala was playing Diana Yastremska in the second round, her first competitive match at the BNP Paribas Open. Lines had formed outside Stadium 3 6 hours before her match. 6 hours. Fans held Filipino flags and wore shirts that said, "Alexandra Eala Fan Club." When delays pushed the match past 10 o'clock at night, when the temperature in the desert dropped and the cold started to bite, the fans stayed. They wrapped themselves in blankets. They stayed through 3 sets that stretched to the edge of midnight. Yastremska served for the match at 5-4 in the third. Eala broke back. Yastremska hit her 15th double fault. Eala won 7-5, 4-6, 7-5 just before the clock struck 12. A sign in the front row read "Laban Alex, fight Alex" in Tagalog. "I just told myself to keep fighting," Eala said afterward. "I really had to dig deep for that one." Now hold that scene in your mind, because it matters for what came next. Eala arrived at her 3rd round match against Gauff on Sunday night having already been through a war. She had been broken, she had been down, she had stared at an exit and refused to walk through it. That kind of match does something to a player. It can exhaust you, certainly. But it can also burn away a layer of self-doubt that you did not know you were still carrying. Eala walked onto Stadium 1 against the 2-time Slam champion with something she had not possessed in Dubai. She walked on knowing she could survive when things went wrong. And things, initially, did go wrong for Gauff. The first 3 service games traded breaks. Neither player could hold. The desert wind, the occasion, the noise from the crowd, the memory of Dubai, all of it seemed to be vibrating through both players' arms. But here is where the match pivoted, and here is where the coaching work at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca showed its fingerprints. In the 4th game, on Gauff's serve, Eala settled into something. She stopped reaching for winners. She stopped trying to shorten rallies. She planted herself on the baseline and started hitting with a depth and consistency that forced Gauff to generate all the pace herself. This sounds simple. It is extraordinarily difficult to execute against a player of Gauff's caliber because Gauff's ball striking off both wings can punish you for just being patient. But Eala was not merely being patient. She was redirecting. She was taking Gauff's power and angling it back at awkward trajectories. She was making Gauff hit one more ball than she wanted to on every single point. The break came. Eala led 3-1. And from there, something collapsed inside Gauff's service games. The American won 0 of her 4 service games in the opening set. Let that sit. 0. Eala broke her in all 4. Gauff hit 7 double faults in 8 games. Her first serve percentage cratered to 43%. This was not the confident, steely champion who had bageled Eala in Dubai 3 weeks prior. This was a player whose serve, her most persistent vulnerability, the ghost that has haunted her since she led the WTA in double faults in 2024 and 2025 and was on pace to lead again in 2026, had chosen the worst possible moment to disintegrate. But here is the part that most observers missed because of what happened later. Even setting aside the double faults, Eala was outplaying Gauff from the baseline. She finished the match with 12 unforced errors to Gauff's 26. 12. In Dubai, Eala had produced 33. In Indian Wells, 12. The Filipina was winning 50% of points on Gauff's second serve. She was converting 5 of 6 break points. The geometric problem she had posed to Gauff was real and precise, and not dependent on Gauff's serve falling apart. The serve falling apart merely made the problem unsolvable. Eala took the first set 6-2. And then, midway through that set, at 2-5 down, Gauff called for a medical timeout. A trainer worked on her left arm and shoulder. You could see the discomfort on her face, not the performative grimace that some players adopt to buy time, but genuine confusion. Something was happening inside her arm that she did not understand. It felt like a firework was going off inside of my arm, Gauff would say afterward, and then my whole arm felt like it was on fire. Nerve-related, the medical team told her. Something they had never seen before with her. Gauff came back for the second set with her forearm heavily strapped. She held serve briefly. Then Eala broke again. The score moved to 2-0 in the second set, and the arena held its breath, because everyone could see the struggle written on Gauff's body. She was wincing between points. She was rolling her shoulder. She was trying to will an arm that felt like it was burning from the inside to cooperate with the demands of professional tennis, and the arm was saying no. When Gauff walked to the chair at 0-2 and told the umpire she could not continue, the crowd reacted in a way that captures the emotional complexity of what Eala has brought to this sport. There was cheering, loud, explosive, flag-waving celebration from the Filipino contingent. And there was, almost simultaneously, a kind of collective wince, because nobody wanted it to end this way. Eala did not want it to end this way. She applauded Gauff off the court. She took the microphone and said, with the composure of someone older than 20, "I really didn't want to win this way. But this is still a really big moment for me, to be able to play on Stadium 1 of Indian Wells. Thank you, Coco, for being an amazing competitor and an amazing role model. I really hope that everything is well and you will recover soon." That is the statement of a player who understands the difference between a result and a victory. Eala got the result. The scoreboard said she won. She advanced to the round of 16. But she knew and said so, publicly, into a microphone with 1,000 Filipino fans screaming her name, that this was not the reckoning she wanted. She had played the best set of tennis she had ever produced against a top-5 player, and then the universe had denied her the chance to prove it could hold for 2. What is maddening and fascinating about this rivalry is how the evidence from their two meetings points in contradictory directions. In Dubai, Gauff destroyed Eala so thoroughly that the scoreline looked like a practice session. Eala had no solutions. She was passive, error-prone, overwhelmed. 17 days later, in Indian Wells, Eala played with a depth, composure, and tactical clarity that suggested a player who had internalized the lesson of that loss faster than anyone thought possible. She reduced her unforced errors by 21. She broke Gauff's serve 5 times in 6 games. She controlled rallies from the baseline instead of being dictated to. But we will never know what the second set would have looked like if Gauff's arm had not betrayed her. That is the incomplete sentence hanging over this rivalry. Eala was leading, playing beautifully, and in complete control. But Gauff was hurt. And Gauff at full health is a different creature than Gauff with fire in her arm. The ambiguity is permanent. No future match between them can retroactively fill in what the second set of Indian Wells was supposed to say. What we can observe, concretely, is what happened to both players after that night. Gauff got an MRI. Nerve-related, they confirmed. She rested, recovered, and 2 weeks later went on a tear through the Miami Open, beating Elisabetta Cocchiaretto, Alicia Parks, eventually reaching the final, where Sabalenka beat her in 3 sets. The arm was fine. Gauff was fine. The champion absorbed a bad night and kept moving, which is what champions do. Meanwhile, Eala beat Yastremska, beat Gauff via retirement, and then ran straight into Linda Noskova in the round of 16 and lost 2-6, 0-6. A wipeout. She went from 12 unforced errors against the world number 3 to looking like she had never played tennis before against the world number 14. That whiplash is not a contradiction. That is what being 20 years old on the WTA Tour actually looks like. Brilliance and collapse live in the same body, separated by 48 hours. Eala went to Miami, beat Laura Siegemund in 3 gritty sets, beat Magda Linette, and then ran into Karolina Machova in the round of 16 and lost 0-6, 2-6. Again. The same pattern. Competitive, sometimes spectacular, against certain opponents, and then genuinely dismantled by others. When Gauff's former coach, watching on television during the Miami coverage, pointed out that Eala needed to dramatically improve her ability to handle elite-level ball speed, he was identifying the central question of her development. She can construct points with surgical intelligence. She can outlast players in long rallies. She can turn defense into offense from the baseline. But when the ball comes heavier and faster and flatter, when there is no time for construction, she can be swept off the court. She went to Linz for her first clay court event of the year. Beat Julia Grabher. Lost to Elena Ostapenko. Went to Stuttgart. Lost to Leylah Fernandez 1-6, 4-6 in the first round. Fernandez said it was like playing a mirror, 2 left-handers, similar builds, similar games, but Fernandez was sharper on the day. And now Madrid looms. Another WTA 1000. Another elite field. Sabalenka, Rybakina, Swiatek, and yes, Gauff. All of them in the draw. Eala is listed as the 29th seed. She will face Barbara Krejcikova, the defending champion, in the first round. And somewhere in that draw, there is the possibility of Eala and Gauff standing across the net from each other for a third time. This time on clay, at altitude, with the Kaja Magica crowd adding its own voltage to an atmosphere that these two seem to electrify wherever they go. What would that match look like? Nobody knows. Nobody can know. Because this is not a rivalry where the pattern is established and predictable. This is a rivalry at its most volatile and compelling stage, where the data from the first 2 meetings tells us almost nothing about the third. One was a demolition. The other was a truncation. Neither was complete. Neither told the full story. And that is precisely why people will keep watching. What Alex Eala did to Coco Gauff's dream in Indian Wells was not a destruction. It was an interruption of Gauff's tournament, of Gauff's body, and of the comfortable assumption that the gap between them was fixed and permanent. Eala proved in 1 set that the gap could close faster than anyone imagined. Gauff's arm proved that sometimes the universe does not let you finish the argument. And Madrid, if the draw cooperates, might finally let them settle it. One complete match. No retirements. No bagels. Just two players who have practiced together, complemented each other, and then tried to take each other apart, standing on red clay under a Spanish sky, finding out what happens when neither one blinks first. That is not a prediction. That is a wish. And in tennis, wishes do not count. Only the points do.